Hey, wait, before we get into the episode, I want to share some exciting news with you. My new book comes out September 30th, and it's called Less Lost: Finding and Being Yourself in the Wilds of Ordinary Life. It's part memoir, part field guide to being yourself in a world that keeps asking you to be someone else. And in it, I share stories from yoga sessions, motorcycle rides, encounters in nature, and even a run-in with the Dalai Lama. And every chapter pairs a story with an embodied practice or tool you can actually use in your own life, not to fix yourself or chase perfection, but to reclaim forgotten parts of who you are, stand in discomfort without disappearing, and belong to yourself without losing connection. Less Lost drops September 30th, and I can't wait for you to grab a copy for yourself and maybe one for a friend who could use the reminder you don't need to fix yourself. You just need to find your way back to being yourself. All right, now on to the show. Hey friend, welcome back to Hey Wait. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted? Whether it was a parent or your spouse or your friend or a therapist, you didn't see it coming, and it changed everything about how you see the world and how you see yourself. If so, my heart goes out to you because betrayal is a unique and excruciating pain that can be so difficult to heal from. But I'm also moved just thinking about sharing today's guest with you because her work truly has the ability to help you begin to heal and transform from your pain. And I want that for you. Today, I'm talking with Dr. Debi Silber. She's the founder and CEO of the PBT Institute, and that stands for Post Betrayal Transformation Institute. Dr. Debi is a two-time #1 international best-selling author, a TEDx speaker, and the creator of a research-based framework that's helping people around the world heal from betrayal and not just survive it, but actually rebuild stronger and healthier than before. Her story starts the way so many powerful stories do, with personal pain. After her own series of betrayals, she found herself asking, why does this hurt so much? And why can't I just move on? And those questions led her to a PhD program in transpersonal psychology. And her research there led to 3 groundbreaking discoveries that changed everything we know about healing from betrayal. In today's conversation, she shares about how she found that betrayal isn't like any other crises. It hits your mind, body, heart, and spirit in a unique way, and it can't be healed the same way as other life challenges. And how she discovered that healing happens in 5 clear and predictable stages, and that there's even a collection of symptoms called post-betrayal syndrome that you may even be experiencing without realizing why. So, if you've been carrying a betrayal that still aches deep in your heart when you think about it, or if you've struggled to trust again or to find your footing after your world was absolutely turned upside down, take a breath and stay with us because what Dr. Debi shares today could be the beginning of your own transformation. Hello and welcome, Dr. Debi.
Looking forward to our conversation.
I first heard about your work through Sarah Rusbatch, and the listener will know that name because she was actually the first person I interviewed on Hey Wait. She's a gray area drinking coach. You were on with her group at around the same time I was, and she sent me the recording, and she said, you have got to have this woman on your podcast. And she's usually right about things, and she was definitely right about this. I've been really looking forward to having you on.
Thank you. Looking forward to our conversation.
So you are an expert and a researcher in betrayal, and that is, I'm imagining, not a job that you get into like, hey, that sounds fun. That's the sort of thing you do because you can't not.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because there's a personal story there. So would you mind starting by how did you get here?
Of course. So you don't think someone says, "Oh, betrayal, that's a fun topic." Daddy? No, not at
I
all.
don't know. I could be wrong.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I've been in business 34 years, health, mindset, personal development, and I had a painful betrayal from my family. Thought I did everything I needed to do to heal from that, and then it happened a few years later. This time it was my husband. That was the deal breaker. Got him out of the house and looked at the 2 experiences thinking, what's similar here? Of course, me, but what else? And I realized I really never took my own needs into account. It was always about everybody else. And I'm one of those people that really believes if nothing changes, nothing changes. And usually I would go to books or courses or something to learn my way through something I was going through, but I couldn't find anything. This was so big that I decided I had to learn it, and study it so big. So I enrolled in a PhD program. I mean, not what
Jeez,
maybe many
trial by fire.
yeah, not maybe what many people would do coming off of a betrayal, but for me, I had no choice. And so while I was there, I did a study and I studied betrayal. And honestly, I studied it just so I'd be better for my kids, for my clients. That study led to 3 discoveries, which changed my work, my health, my business, my life, my everything.
You're everything. Before you unpack the 3 discoveries, did you then find your healing through the research and finding that you weren't alone, that there was a pattern? Like, so you got a PhD, but you also, I don't even know what the metaphor is. Like, you also
I was the
got
guinea pig.
you were
Yes.
the pig the whole time.
I was the case study because whatever I learned, if it worked, I tried it. And
Huh.
if it didn't, I didn't. And so that was one of the reasons why the 3rd discovery showed up the way that it did. And I remember a moment where here I was in this program. I mean, I hadn't been back in school in 30 years, right? So
Wow.
this was new to
What a
me.
leap.
It was gigantic, and it was funny because the kids were, they'd be complaining about homework. I'm like, "I know, me too." And I didn't know how I was gonna manage the time. I didn't know how I was gonna pay for it, but it was just one of those things I felt like I just had to. I mean, it wasn't even a choice, but I do remember going, through the program, and there was just this one moment, and I said, "I have no idea if I can heal from this, but if I can, I'm taking everybody with me."
I love that. I just that's what I got when I watched the first talk that I saw on you. I was like, of you. I said, this woman has transformed in a way that's pretty rare and remarkable. Transformed personal pain into like, I'm gonna heal everybody. And the piece that I find so shocking is that there was not research on betrayal. Not
There
to the
was
extent that you
research.
could heal from
Right,
it.
and the idea of doing a study is you have to find a hole in the research. You have to find what hasn't been studied. So betrayal was studied, but what I wanted to do was study the lived experience, physically, mentally, and emotionally. What does someone go through? So my study participants, it wasn't like thousands and thousands of people. It was a smaller group, deep, deep conversations over the period of time just to really learn what was happening. And it was shocking to see the similarities, shocking to see what it did to them physically, mentally, and emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. But the beauty was, it was also shocking to see when they did certain things, what happened. So it was like, how do you keep that to yourself?
Yeah, right. And thank you for not. So actually with that, what are the 3 discoveries?
Yeah. So the first one was I had a feeling betrayal was a different type of trauma. I'd been through death of a loved one, I'd been through disease, and I was like, betrayal feels different. I didn't want to assume it was the same for everybody in my study. So I asked them, if you've been through other traumas besides betrayal, does it feel different for you? And unanimously, they said it's so different. And here's why: because it feels so intentional, we take it so personally. So the entire self gets shattered. Think
It
about it,
happened
rejection.
to you because you're
Exactly.
you. Yeah.
Well, it's the self.
Yeah.
Rejection, abandonment, belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust. Like if you lose someone you love, you grieve, you're sad, you mourn the lost, life will never be the same. But you don't question the relationship. You don't question your ability to trust. You don't question your sanity, right? With betrayal, you do. So the invitation is not only do you have to rebuild your life, that's the invitation with other traumas. You have to rebuild your life, but you also have to rebuild the self. So, like with post traumatic growth, and originally that's what I was studying because I always like sort of the upside of something. I was studying betrayal and post traumatic growth, and I was like, yeah, post traumatic growth. I kind of look at it as the upside of trauma. What that you get to see things from a new perspective, awareness, insight that you didn't have. But I was like, okay, yes, you have to do that, but you also have to rebuild every one of those broken pieces that
Yeah.
wasn't broken beforehand. So it's a different type of trauma. That was the first discovery.
I want to ask you more about, but go ahead and tell the other two, and then we'll see where we go.
Yeah, and I will tell you though, one of the biggest mistakes, and it's not a mistake, it's not for lack of, trying, certainly, is that most people treat it like other traumas. And they can't, because it's very, very different. And that's why it doesn't work. Healing needs to be deliberate and intentional. And you need to approach it from that physical, mental, emotional, psychological, spiritual angles. And what many people do is they'll treat it like, let's say they'll go to some sort of support group that often keeps you stuck. They'll numb, they'll medicate, whatever. That's going to keep them stuck. Very often they'll go seek therapy. Well-meaning therapists, right? Best of intentions. But if that therapist isn't highly skilled in betrayal, what's going to happen is that client will feel heard and validated and understood, and they are not an inch closer to healing. And we have so many people coming into the PBT Institute with therapy trauma. Well-meaning therapists.
I believe that. I
Yeah,
believe that.
but what's happening is, and you'll see this in the third discovery, they're solidifying their spot in the hardest place to move from.
Mm. And I'm imagining part of that is because they don't recognize the first discovery, which is this is a different beast. I can't approach this the way I've approached any other thing in my therapeutic process before.
Exactly. And because of that third discovery.
Okay.
And so you want me to go into the second discovery?
Yeah, let's do it.
So the second discovery was that there's actually this collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal. It's known as post-betrayal syndrome. And we've had over 100,000 people take our post-betrayal syndrome quiz to see to what extent they're struggling. And a few things about that. The first thing is we've all heard time heals all wounds, right? I have the proof that when it comes to betrayal, that's not true. You cannot count on time. You can't even count on a new relationship to heal it. It's deliberate and intentional again. And like, for example, and I'm happy to share the stats too, but for example, we had a woman in our program in her mid-80s, and she had a family betrayal. She was adopted. They didn't tell her. It was like something like that. So for 70 plus years, she had a digestive issue. 45% of everybody betrayed has a gut issue of some kind. So 70 plus years, right? And now 2 weeks into our program, healed from 70 plus years of a digestive issue, because you can't count on time. Certainly 70 plus years is enough to see.
Yeah,
Will
right.
time help here, right?
You would think.
Or a new relationship, because the real issue was the betrayal. When she dealt with the real issue, the gut cleared.
What are some of the other physical aspects of this syndrome?
And just before I get off the gut topic here, think about what the gut does. It absorbs, digests, and processes food. Isn't a
Right.
betrayal difficult to absorb, digest, and process, right?
Right.
So,
And it keeps you from getting nourishment.
of
If your gut
course.
isn't absorbing and processing your food, you're not
Yeah.
getting the nourishment that is all around you.
Yeah. And when your body perceives stress, you could eat the best diet ever, but meanwhile, you're not
Right.
even getting the benefit of those nutrients because the gut lining, dysbiosis, right? So you have this inflammation and the good stuff is going out, the bad stuff is coming in. So it's a wreck. And so we treat it through all kinds of, let's say, supplements, or you can see the best gut expert. I'm friends with a lot of them, right? But at the root of it is this unhealed betrayal. And when you heal that, and then you can have a beautiful protocol on top. Now you're talking. Like, now you're actually going to do something with dealing with the root cause.
I know I asked you another question about what the other symptoms are, but this has to be linked to the nervous system on some level, right? Because betrayal is the actual definition of a trauma, which is something happens to you that floods you. You can't do anything about it. So your body's going to have a fight, flight, freeze, fawn response. Is that
100%.
what is leading to these health and body symptoms?
Yes, exactly. And your nervous system is completely dysregulated. Rightly
Whacked.
so. You've had a shock to the body, mind, and heart. You can't be acting the same way you were, right after a shock like that. It is completely without your awareness or consent.
Hey, wait, I want to take a quick break to tell you about something I genuinely love and think you might too. And yes, this is an ad, but I promise to only ever share products I actually use made by people I trust. So let me tell you about Saint Solaire. This is the sunscreen I use on my face every single day, and not just because I should, but because I actually want to. It's lightweight, not greasy, and it makes my skin feel moisturized. And I happen to use the tinted version, which doubles as a lightweight foundation, but there's a non-tinted one too. And this sunscreen checks all the boxes. It's organic, non GMO, cruelty free, reef safe, made with clean anti inflammatory ingredients that are proven not to mess with your hormones. And instead of causing breakouts, it actually heals them. And the bonus? I know the woman who created this, and she is an absolute gem of a human and the kind of person that you would be happy to support. So if you're like me and you want to protect your skin year round without putting on greasy gunk that's toxic and disrupts your endocrine system, check out saintsolaireskincare.com and use Hey Wait for 15% off. And I'll drop that link in the show notes so it's easy for you to find. All right, back to the show. Are these different physical symptoms because of how the betrayal is a trauma that impacts your nervous system? So it happens and you've got fight, flight, freeze, fawn response, and that's what's contributing to these physical symptoms?
Oh, your nervous system is completely dysregulated after betrayal. It's because this is a shock to your body, your mind, your heart. This was the person, these were the people you trusted the most. So it is absolutely going to trigger the stress response, and you're at risk for every single stress related symptom, illness, condition, disease. So happy to share some of the statistics if you want to hear.
Yeah, please do.
So now imagine out of 100,000 people, men, women, just about every country is represented. As much as you're going to hear these symptoms, hear these numbers. Ready? 78% constantly revisit their experience. 81% feel a loss of personal power. Like, think of the choices you're going to make when you feel a loss of personal power. 80% are hypervigilant. That's exhausting. 94% deal with painful triggers. And if you've ever had a trigger, they're debilitating. The most common physical symptoms: 71% have low energy, 68% have sleep issues, 63% have extreme fatigue. So you go to sleep all night, you wake up, you're exhausted, your adrenals have tanked. 47% have weight changes. So in the beginning, you can't hold food down. Later on, you're emotionally eating. You're using food for comfort. I already
Yeah.
mentioned about the digestive issues. Mentally, 78% are overwhelmed. 70% are walking around in a state of disbelief. 64% are in shock. 62% can't concentrate. So imagine you can't concentrate. You're exhausted. Let's say you have a gut issue. You still have to feed your kids. You still have to work. You have to take care of elderly parents, whatever you have going on. That's not even emotionally. Emotionally, 88% experience extreme sadness. 83% are very angry. And that
Oh.
same person can be bouncing
Right.
around between those two all day long. I'll just read a few more. 79% are stressed. This one killed me. 84% have an inability to trust. Think about how that would affect you in your relationships, in your work.
Well, those, I just need to pause and hey, wait for a moment and to say those stats make my heart ache. And I am imagining there's a person listening who's going, oh my gosh, it all makes sense.
What's even crazier, and I want to get to the remainder, just a few.
Yeah.
They're not even necessarily representing a recent betrayal. This could be from the parent who did something horrible when you were a kid. This could be from the partner who broke your heart in high school. So think about that. That person may not know, care, remember. They may not even be alive. And here we are decades later, right? Like that client we had, because of
Mhm.
something left unhealed.
And you don't know. And you're just thinking after decades, this is who I am. This
Mhm.
is what life feels like.
Exactly. Exactly.
I want to know how to get out of that, but I know we haven't gotten to the third one yet, the third discovery, because this kind of all three of them together create the whole picture.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So, these are crazy. 67% prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt again. They put the big wall up.
Well, they can't trust.
You can't trust. Exactly. So think about that. They feel like I'm better off keeping everyone at a distance than risk that level of vulnerability again. 82% find it hard to move forward. 90% want to move forward, but they don't know how.
Mm.
The third discovery, for me, that was the most exciting. And what we learned was while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, and so many people do, if we're going to fully heal, and by fully heal, I mean those symptoms I just shared, to this completely rebuilt place where you rebuild your life and yourself, you will move through 5 proven predictable stages. What's even more exciting about that is we know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally at every stage. And we know what we need to do in order to move from one stage to the next. Healing's entirely predictable. Happy to share the stages if you want to hear.
Yes. I mean, this absolutely, I just need to pause there and say that's absolutely wild.
Mhm.
And this is coming from you being the guinea pig.
Yeah.
You've experienced these stages yourself. You've seen other people in them. They always, it's like any other process oriented healing. This is, we know you're going to start here. I'm thinking of like the stages of grief. There are the stages of betrayal.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget the day my study chair said, "Debbie, I believe you've discovered a process here." And when you're looking at the research and you're seeing, oh my gosh, this is what happens in this stage, and then you do this and this happens, and then you do this and this happens. There was the roadmap. And
What was that moment like for you when they pointed that out?
if my head could fly off my body, it would have done that right then, because I know how painful it is.
Yeah.
I know how debilitating. I know how shocking. And it's not to say what trauma is better or worse. They're all painful. But to have your heart broken in a million pieces and know, wait, there's a proven,
Mhm.
predictable, research-based way to move through this?
Right, I'm not uniquely broken. I'm not alone. There is a path.
Yeah. And the part that's so interesting, healing becomes a choice. And a lot of people, they don't want to know that because they have their story. They like their story. And that story becomes very familiar. And it's not that I'm saying it in a like they don't want to heal. They just don't even think it's possible. And as I share the stages,
Right.
you'll see exactly where this shows up. Ready?
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
let's go.
It's all we do within the PBT Institute. It's what I certify all of our coaches and practitioners in. I'm going to give you a boiled down version. So, stage 1, this is before it happens. And if you can imagine 4 legs of a table, the 4 legs being physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, what I saw with everybody, me too, was a heavy lean on the physical and the mental thinking and doing. We're
Mhm.
so good at that, and kind of neglecting or ignoring the emotional and the spiritual, feeling and being. That's not to say if you're ignoring those things, you will be betrayed. It was just a typical profile we saw. But if a table only has 2 legs, that table's going to topple over pretty easily. That's us. Stage 2, shock, trauma, D-Day. Just
That's when it happens.
oof, the scariest of all the stages. Everybody remembers their D-Day because you've just had a psychological earthquake. Life is now compartmentalized into 2 camps: before it happened, after it happened, right?
Yeah.
And right here, it's the breakdown of the body, the mind, and the worldview. You've ignited the stress response. You're now headed for every single, as I mentioned before, stress related symptom, illness, condition, disease. Your mind is in a complete state of chaos and overwhelm. You cannot understand what just happened. It makes no sense. And your worldview has just been shattered. That's your mental
Mhm.
model, the rules that govern you that prevent chaos. This person's safe to trust. Don't go there, right?
Yeah.
And in one earth-shattering moment or series of moments, every rule you've been counting on, no longer. The bottom
Mhm.
has bottomed out and a new bottom hasn't been formed yet. It's terrifying, right? But think about it. If the bottom were to bottom out on you, what would you do? You'd grab hold of anything or anyone in order to stay safe and stay alive.
Or
That's
just have some sense of solidity in your
it.
world.
Yeah, because you
Yeah.
need a ground to stand on. That's
Yeah.
stage 3. Survival instincts emerge. This is the most practical out of all of the stages. If you can't help me, get out of my way. How do I survive this? Who can I trust? Here's the
Mhm.
trap, though. Stage 3, by far, hands down, is the most common place we get stuck. You know, so many people in this stage. Here's why. Once we've figured out how to survive our experience, because it feels so much better, then the shock and trauma we just came from, we think it's good.
Well, this is that whole thing of your nervous system doesn't want growth for you. Your nervous system wants safety and
Yeah.
stability. And if you're okay and you're surviving, your nervous system will go, great, work is done. This
Exactly.
is where we live.
Yeah. And because because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we don't know there's a stage 4 or stage 5. Transformation doesn't even begin until stage 4. But because we don't know that, we park here.
Yeah.
We're not supposed to. And then 4 things happen. The first thing is we start getting all those small self benefits, secondary gain. We get our story. We get to be right. We get sympathy. Right? We get we don't have to learn how to trust again. Should I trust you? Can I trust you? I forget it. I'm not trusting anybody. So we plant deeper roots. And because we're here longer than we should be now, the mind starts doing things like, maybe you're not that great. Maybe this, maybe that. So we plant deeper roots. And now because these are the thoughts we're thinking, this is the energy we start putting out.
Right.
Like energy attracts like energy. So now we start attracting situations and circumstances, new relationships to confirm this is where we belong. Here's where we're going to join that group and we'll sabotage our healing because we found our people.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Like stage 3 is self-sabotage. It's like the exterior is armored up. I'm good. Look at me. I made it through this thing. The inside is just how can I keep getting in my own way and,
Yeah.
making things worse unwillingly.
Of course.
Yeah.
Here's where we start going to therapy and we're solidifying our spot because we're feeling okay during the session and we leave. We're not an inch closer to stage 4. And it's so interesting because I certify a lot of coaches, a lot of therapists. The therapists are always the hardest ones to certify. And again, there's like stage 2, it is so important to just unload this, right? But when you're not moving forward, that's when it becomes a real challenge. And here's also where we may be healing. We will sabotage our growth because we're afraid to outgrow our betrayer who has no intention of changing.
Oh, and I'm imagining that's particularly big if it's family or an ex-spouse or spouse that you love that you can't imagine your life without.
Here's what happens. We're in this relationship and then we're betrayed and we're so hurt. We're in so much pain and we can't stand this feeling. So we're just like, okay, fine. Right. And we just do this with this person, with someone else. And we could do this for life. The invitation is, okay, this is a stage 3 life.
And for the listener, if you can't see her, she's like
Just
putting her hands together, fingertips to fingertips, kind of butting together over and over again.
That's it. But now the invitation is if you go to stage 4, but let's say you just are so committed right here, what you're going to do is you're going to keep sabotaging yourself because you don't want to outgrow this person.
The way I talk about that in my work is that you're entering the other person's world in order to get connection. You can't trust to the stability of your own world because you haven't yet known that there's another connection you can get there.
Yeah. So you think, well, this feels good, but this is what I know.
Yeah.
But then you're like, but why can't they do this? Why can't they rise up? Because they're not ready. So eventually you get this kind of dynamic going on. So the idea is when you do this, this person may say, I better step up my game to meet the strength of that person. That's a 2.0 relationship. But if they can't, they go their own way. But this has to show up.
The leveling up of the other person in order to reconnect.
Exactly. So, and now with stage 3, if that weren't bad enough, it's going to get a little worse, but I'll get you out of here, I promise. Because it feels so bad, but you don't know there's anywhere else to go, right here we start numbing, avoiding, distracting. So we use food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, whatever. And think about it. We do it for a day, a week, a month. Now it's a habit, a year.
Well, and then you become identified with that distraction and you have I'm imagining, you're not even connecting it to
not at all.
The original betrayal.
Yeah. Well, think about it. I can see someone 20 years later and say, that emotional eating you're doing, or even that overworking, which seems like it's a good distraction, right? Well, I'm working. That's a good thing. Over exercising. It's a good thing, right? But it's not when it's distracting you. So they don't have any idea.
Well, let me ask you then, if there were a person listening and they're like, am I in that? Am I in stage 3 and I'm stuck there? What kind of inquiry could they do to know that?
You know what? You could ask these 4 questions, and I invite you to write these down. That's my way of saying write these down.
Okay.
Am I numbing, avoiding, distracting? If so, how? Call yourself on it. Do I go into a room and I just put the TV on to drown out the sound of my thoughts? Do I go into the kitchen, I'm at the least bit hungry, and I just want to binge? Call yourself on it. The second question, what am I pretending not to see?
Mm,
Right? Am I pretending not to see my relationship is in trouble? Am I pretending not to see I hate my job? Am I pretending not to see that health issue that needs my
yeah.
attention? The third question, what's life going to look like in 5 to 10 years if I keep this going? Play
Mm,
it out. Deal with the relationship the same way you're doing it right now. What's that going to look like in 10 years? What can life look like in 5 to 10 years if I change now?
those questions are valuable questions for anybody and everybody, not just someone who suspects that they are in post-betrayal syndrome. I mean, those are powerful
Yeah.
questions.
Transformation begins when you tell yourself the truth. And that's what we need to do. Sometimes we need to shock ourselves out of the numbness
Mhm.
that we're just going through. And
That's so hard though, because that, like you were saying before, it instigates change.
yeah. And change
For
requires a lot. But what happens is the effort and the energy spent keeping things from tumbling, we
Mhm.
don't realize the energy that's taking from us. There's a mantra that I've been using for my 34 years in business. I don't know of a topic it does not apply to, and you'll hear it right here. And you'll see it here too. Hard now, easy later. Easy now, hard later. Take your pick. It's
Yeah.
going to be one of those two. When it comes to betrayal, it's hard now, easy
Mhm.
later. But and I didn't even get you into stages 4 and 5, but I just want to share this. What so many people do is they're in so much pain but they just don't want their lives to change. Classic example, I don't want the kids to know we have a good setup going, with the house and
Mhm.
the people and everything, and I want to keep things the same. But meanwhile, they're sick, they're sad, they're stuck. There's no
Mhm.
love in that relationship, complete relationship. It's completely eroding, but they're thinking, but this is painful. So this must be hard, right? No, that's still easy
Right.
now because you're not taking on the new thoughts, behaviors, actions that would create a new version of you. That's the hard now, leading to the easy later. That's when we move into stage 4, which is the old version of you no longer exists. You are recreating
Mm.
a new version of you. You're taking in, it's like every thought that comes in, did the old me say yes to this? Do this? Feel
Mhm.
right about this? Does it still work? If not, it's not coming along. It's
Yeah.
exhausting. But that's how you intentionally, deliberately rebuild something entirely new.
Right, it seems to me it's a bit like, swimming with the current when you're in a riptide, like,
Yeah.
you don't try and swim against it, you just kinda have to go with it, and then you get out of it eventually. If not, you're gonna exhaust yourself and kill yourself.
Using another water example, because you just made me think of this one. You know what it's like? It's like I see people do this all the time. They swim out, let's say halfway. Let's say there's this beautiful island, right? And they swim halfway, and they're like, "This is just too hard," and they keep going back to the shore. And then they're like, "Let me try again." And they go, and they're like, "This is too hard," and they swim all the way back to the shore. And they do that all the time.
Yeah.
And think about it: if you were to keep going at that halfway point, you look
Yeah.
where you get to,
Yeah.
but it requires swimming in unfamiliar territory, right? It's completely unfamiliar. And people stay with the same everything because we
Right.
don't like change. But the
Well, so
only benefit is familiarity. That's it.
this is where the nervous system piece then comes in as to being so important in this healing, is because you have to grow a level of self-trust in yourself, in your system,
Mm,
that you don't freak out when you get halfway there and everything looks different.
yeah.
That you have some sense of trust. I mean, you're rebuilding trust, and part of the trustworthiness is in your own self, in your process, I'm imagining.
Self-trust is completely shattered
Yeah.
because think about the way this works. The person you trusted the most just proved untrustworthy. So then the natural thing is, well, how do I trust myself? Where was I? How did I not
Yeah.
see? How did I not know? So now if I can't trust the person I trusted the most and I don't trust myself, how in the world can I trust in everything and anyone. So it has to be
Mhm.
rebuilt from the ground up. People ask me all the time, can trust be repaired? I say no. Can it be rebuilt? Yeah. It's a big
Yeah,
process.
that's a big difference.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So stage 4, it's you know what stage 4 feels like? It's like if you've ever moved. If you've ever moved to a new house, office, whatever, like all your stuff's not there, it's not cozy
Mhm.
yet, but it's like this sort of hopeful excitement. But it's interesting because if you were to move, you don't take everything with you. You
Ideally.
Right? Yeah, you don't take the things that don't represent who you're now ready to become, and what I found was there was this spot as people go from stage 3 to stage 4, if your
Mhm.
friends weren't there for you, they're not coming along. That lame support group that's just,
Mhm.
keeping you stuck, you're done. That betrayer who's not changing, you're done. That therapist who's, unknowingly, of course, is keeping you stuck, you're done. And people question all the time, "Is it me?" Yes, it is. You're undergoing a transformation. You really are. It's real common. And so it's not that it's a lonely time, it's a very personal time. And then when you settle into this space, you make it cozy, you make it kind of mentally home. You move into the fifth most beautiful space. And this is healing, rebirth, and a new worldview. The body's healing now. Self-love, self-care, eating well, exercise. We didn't have the bandwidth for that earlier. Now we do. The
Mhm.
mind is healing. You're making all kinds of new rules, new boundaries, based on the road you just traveled. And you have a whole new worldview based on everything you see so clearly now. And the four legs of that table, in the beginning, it was just about the physical and the mental. Now we're solidly grounded because we're focused on the emotional and the spiritual too. Those are the stages.
As you're describing them, I can just feel in my own body the transition from the kind of, obliviousness of
Yeah.
stage 1 to the pure pain and terror and panic of stage 2, and then the beginning to get more and more self-possessed,
Mhm.
self-inhabited,
Mhm.
and I think that's the piece that I was curious about. I mean, all of the 3 discoveries, the 5 stages, the research, the statistics are powerful, but I think the other piece that was powerful for me in watching you the first time I saw you speak was like, "Oh, there's a woman who did the work and is self-possessed."
Mm.
Right? Like, you are the advertisement, as it were, for like, this is what stage 5, because the other part of your story that's remarkable to me is you are now married to the same man who you divorced as you
Well,
were stage 2.
yeah,
Or
we weren't divorced, we were separated, and I explain it like this, rebuilding is always a choice, whether you rebuild yourself and move along, and that's what I did with my family. They were deeply stuck in stage 3, right? So
Mm,
there was just no working with that. So I healed myself and moved along. And then as 2 completely transformed people, my husband and I married each other again. New ring, new vows, new dress, and
new people. Yeah.
our kids as our bridal party. Betrayal will show you who someone is, and it can absolutely wake them up to who they became. Not that you need to do anything with it, but there's tremendous potential.
I don't know if you know this, but, Sarah Rusbatch, not only was she the first person I interviewed on this, but she came back to interview me on my own podcast about the betrayal that makes me do the work that I do. But in my case, I was the betrayer.
Okay.
I had an affair when I was
Yeah.
23 and married, and it absolutely shattered my life,
Mm.
my sense of self, my trust in myself, and changed everything about who I am, and that's why I do the work I do now. So,
Yeah.
it's to be on the other end of that, there is a different kind of healing path, I'm assuming, for the betrayer,
Absolutely.
and you have courses for that too, right?
We do, and it's so interesting because people say all the time, "Oh, once a cheater, always a cheater," and they can't change. In the beginning, the very early, like my stage 2, I questioned it also, but I saw it firsthand. And I'm like, "Wait a second, but I'm totally changing. So who am I to think? What's so
Mm.
special about me that someone else can't change as well?" And then when I was working with so many of the betrayers, they said over and over and over again, it had nothing to do with my partner. It had everything to do with me. It was my lack, my scarcity,
Yes.
my unhealed trauma, my sense of entitlement,
Yes.
my whatever. And oh my gosh, I learned the greatest lesson of my life. I happened to break the heart of the person I trusted the most and I loved the most, but I see it so clearly now. So there is absolutely that
Yeah, and
transformative power on both sides.
on the other, as the betrayer, I was the one who instigated all the pain. It was in a way, just of out of control, out of my control because of my own story and all that. But knowing that I was the one that caused that pain, I was like, never again,
Right.
ever, zero, not happening. Like,
Lesson learned.
yeah.
And you're a completely different person than that
Mhm.
version of you. That's the beauty of this experience. You crash and burn, and you get to become someone who never would have been able to
Yeah.
be created had the experience not happened. That's trauma well served.
If I was interviewing you however many years ago before the trauma with or the betrayal with your husband,
Mhm.
and we were sitting here talking about whatever work you were doing at the time, what would have been different about how you showed up or how you were in your body?
I definitely was not this confident. I didn't love myself like I do now. I was so hard on myself. I was just trying to prove a lot. That's gone. Now it's just about the work, helping the right people, reaching the right people, loving, living as much as I can.
Well, everything that you've said today feels like it's a direct message to a person who has experienced betrayal. But if you could say one last thing to someone out there who's listening, who is maybe recognizing they're coming out of stage two or they're in stage three, or they suspect they're in stage one where they're like, ooh, what am I not
Yeah.
seeing? And I don't normally use this word, but like what message of hope would you give to them?
I would say that the research has been done. Healing is a choice. Don't stay stuck. You've been through the worst of it already. You owe it to yourself to move through stages 4 and 5. I didn't do anything anybody else couldn't do. There's a roadmap for it now.
And you just have to choose it.
That's it.
And you have 2 amazing books out, The Trust Again and From Hardened to Healed. You've got a ton of amazing videos on YouTube. And then what's your website where people can find all
Yeah,
of the things?
there's 8 books, so just choose the one that
Oh,
resonates the most with
all
us.
right, 8.
Those are kind of some of the most recent. One since then, 2 since then. The PBT, as in post betrayal transformation, the PBTinstitute.com.
And I'm so glad not only are you working directly with people, you are training more and more and more people. Because the more I've learned about your work, the more I realized when someone comes to me with betrayal, I'm sending them along to someone who's been trained specifically with the PBT Institute because it is I appreciate it that it is a different piece that you're talking about.
And it can be quicker. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be years and years. Not at all.
How quick do you see people
You know,
go through the stages?
I work people when people are in our transform program where they're working with me, they are signing up to move through stages through stage 5 in 6 months.
Wow.
Mhm.
Holy, I just imagine the person listening who might be thinking, "I need this," and to like, the little zing they would've gotten, like, 6 months from now,
Yep.
I could have a completely different experience of myself in the world.
New level of health, new relationships, new businesses, new passion projects. That's what's waiting for
Yeah.
you in stages 4 and 5. The PBT Institute, that was a stage 5 thing. Marrying my husband, again, that was a stage 5 thing. You don't
Yeah.
have access to that when you're stuck in your trauma.
No. Well, before I let you go, I'm gonna come back to the same question I ask everybody because you fit the persona of so many of the myself included, so many people who listen, which is you're a sensitive empath and one of your number one values you said is integrity.
Ugh, yep.
Relationships are super important to you.
Mhm.
And you came from that two legs of the stool or the table before where it's like you're thinking and doing. What is a practice or a ritual that you do in your daily life that helps you stay with yourself, particularly when you're with other people?
If I'm coaching one of our transform members, I am empathic enough to feel deeply and have them know I feel them deeply without getting pulled to the point where I can't pull them up. It's a fine line. I mean, like I said, I've been coaching 34 years, thousands and thousands of people. So I know how to get that close and that deep where the trust is there, where the empathy is there without getting pulled down so I can't help.
Because there's some anchor inside of you that you get to root into?
I have to, because if I just am with them to the point where I'm just feeling it with them, I can't pull them up. And they're counting on me. They're trusting in me until they could trust again in themselves.
Thank you so much. I really am excited by again, I don't use the word hope very often. I think it's a troublesome word, but there is something deeply hopeful about the work that you're doing, and I have a feeling that there's someone listening that got what they needed. So thank you for that. Thank you for doing everything that you do, and thanks for being here today.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, listener, for being here today. I hope something in today's episode resonated with you and helps you to have a better experience of yourself in your life and your relationships because you really do deserve that. And if someone came to mind while you were listening today, would you take a moment and share this episode with them right now? And if you have an extra minute and you haven't yet, could you please leave a review for Hey Wait? Because both of those things help new people find the show. And it means a lot to me to be able to reach and connect with new people around this work. And with that, if you have an idea for someone you want me to interview, or a topic you want me to cover, or a question you have, feel free to reach out to me at Hey Wait with Jay on Instagram. Hey Wait is produced by Scuff Studio, and the original music is by Dalton Grant. And hey wait, before we go, I want to remind you, as always, that your insides matter and the right people will meet you there. So stay with yourself, and I'll see you next time.